I am live. Good morning. It is Sunday morning. It is the 11th of June 2023. I'm reading out of Winged Pharaoh, written by Joan Grant. It's a book of her far memory. She lived a life as Sekita here a very long time ago, before the flood, before Babylon, about 5,000 years after Atlantis fell. She is now ruling, and with her brother Nea, they're co-ruling Calm, and she is back from a 2-month visit to Minoas. We are here on the 7th part of this book, chapter 1, Dream Warning. Every year, Nea made a royal progress by river to the sea and to our southern boundary, so that throughout the two lands no year passed when all our people did not see Pharaoh. He would stay at the southern garrison for 20 days, hunting with his captains and the nobles of the south. In the 8th year of my reign, when he was at Nakish, my spirit, which watched over my country while I slept, brought back warning of danger. In my dream I saw the looking girls of the temple, and they cried out that they were blind, and in my dream also I saw far below me the land of Calm, and from the east there came a dark cloud that swept towards it from the narrow sea. Then I saw my palace, and towards it advanced a crawling army of black ants. And when I awoke I knew that this dream was a symbol of what I wished my body to remember, for I had returned to it in haste. I knew that danger threatened Calm, but in what form I knew not, whether as a famine, or as a pestilence, or as an invading army. So I sent a swift messenger to the temple of Atet to summon Ne-Serah, and to ask him to bring with him 2 of the chief looking girls, so that I might question them. When they came into my presence, I asked the looking girls what they had seen during the past few days, and they told me that the faces of their pyramids had been empty. Then I told Ne-Serah of my dream, and I asked him to find out what danger threatened our country. And he took a silver mirror from the table and looked at a brilliant spot of sunlight reflected in it, and so freed his spirit from his body. Then he covered his eyes with his hand, and his body spoke of those things his spirit saw away from it. To the east of the river there is a dark cloud. It is a cloud of evil magic put there to blind the eyes of those who would see through it. But with my will I will drive back the darkness. I see a great army advancing. They are of the Zilma people, led by Samach, son of Sadok, who perished at the hand of the great Atet. They have come secretly across the desert. Before them they sent spies dressed as herdsmen, who spoke the tongue of Calm, and if they met any of the people of the land, they held them as countrymen, and when accepted as friend, they hid their treachery with death. With him there is a priest of the shadow, who is strong in power. He has cloaked these people with a cloud, so that no one who has not a greater power than his can see through it and discover their evil purpose. And with him is one of whose body is controlled by a follower of Set, and they call this man Belshazzar, the mouthpiece of the gods. None of his dark masters speak through him, for he is protected by the priest of power. They number 20,000, and with their great baggage train they travelled slowly. They are still 3 days' journey from the river, and if they travelled west, they would reach the river midday between Abidwa and Men-Atetis. And as he spoke, I knew that the wings of destruction hovered over Calm, for it was the time of the harvest, when many of my soldiers were at their homes, and I could muster less than 5,000 men. Even if Nea or the northern garrison should start today, they would arrive too late to save my people, and my city, which I had sworn to shelter, would no longer be a place of peace, and the fields and gardens of my country would be destroyed. Each man would have to fight like a warrior god, for we would be outnumbered 4 to 1. If Nea were here to lead them, they would follow him to the caverns of the underworld, though Set himself should bar their path. Always has Pharaoh led his armies into battle. I wear the body of a woman, yet I have sworn the mighty oath to shepherd my people with a crook and flail, to scourge their enemies. My woman's body is strong in the strength of my spirit, and Za'atet shall lead them through Pharaoh is a queen. I turned to Nesera. We must call upon the gods to give us wisdom to destroy the Zuma, before they desecrate a single field by letting their shadows fall upon it. How many chariots have they? I could not say to 50, but above 500, perhaps more. If we use all our horses, even the mares, though I would rather pour gold dust to the sands, we can put only 100 in the field. So we must fight where they cannot use their chariots. A little to the south of where you said they would reach the river if they marched west. There is a great semicircle of high cliffs which come down to the river at each end. In the center of it, the cliffs are split by a gorge, which winds up through the hills until it reaches the high desert, and midday along it a rocky riverbed, dry at this season, joins it from the north. If we could surprise their army there, our skill might outmatch their number. But how could we get them there? And Nesera said, tonight at sunset, as on every night, their priest of power will listen to the commands of the follower of Set, who is his master, commands that he hears spoken by the tongue of Belshazzar. He who controls Belshazzar is strong in power, yet I am stronger. I will overcome this follower of Set, so that he makes his servant speak my words, and then I will bind him so that he cannot warn the Zuma priest of what I have done. Tonight the voice of Belshazzar shall summon Sernak and the commanders of his army. Then they shall hear these words. It is Set who speaks, you shall know victory, for I command your march. But if you dare to disobey, and he will, then I will send a pestilence amongst you, so that your bodies not rot before you die. You shall overthrow the temples of Ptah, Anubis, Horus, and all their train, and destroy their priests and statues in their sanctuaries. Then shall you fill these temples with my priests, and set up my image 10 cubits high in stone. The land of calm is unprepared. You will find conquest easy and harvests rich. March south for a day, then turn to the setting sun, and on the evening of the second day, encamp on the head of a steep rock defile that you will see before you. It leads to a plain where herds of cattle roam in lush pastures. It is my will that you sacrifice 200 bulls to me. Half of each beast must be burned, so that in their smoke I savor a feast of flesh. The rest shall be yours to eat, so that your bodies are strong to fight for me. Your chariots and the servants of your baggage train must stay in your encampment, while Sermak leads his warriors down the gorge. If you are faithful in your sacrifice, on the evening of the third day I shall give you a fresh command. Until that time you will not hear my voice. Obey, I, Set, have spoken. But won't they see the danger in this plan? Surely they will see that they might be entrapped in the gorge. You do not know how greatly they fear Set. They would not dare to disobey what they think he has commanded them to do. Nesera, that is a plan worthy of Ptah for wisdom. By their belief in evil they shall be destroyed, and so learn the retribution of false gods. Give them one more command. Tell them to start down the defile before dawn, so that they reach the plain at sunrise. Zep, with his men, shall wait in the north gorge, and Ma'ates shall fall upon the rear. All my chariots and the spearmen of the royal bodyguard shall be waiting for them when they reach the plain, and as my father drove them to the sea, again shall Zuma know the strength of calm. You have given Zep and Ma'atis their commands. Who will command the warriors on the plain? The chariot of Pharaoh leads the battle line. Often have I thrown spear at crocodiles or loosed my arrow to a flying bird. Now I shall have a quarry worthy of my skill. I call upon the gods to let a shaft of mine drink Sernak's blood. Nesera, you taught me wisdom so I could rule. Would you have me fail my people in leadership? To other women I should say this were unwise, but on your brow your father set his seal, and you shall lead his chariots worthily. I continue, chapter 2. The Amphitheatre of Grain. There was no captain of captains of the royal bodyguard save Nea, When I became Pharaoh, I had appointed Zeb my standard-bearer, and during the expedition to Punt, he had won the rank of captain. Maates, the other captain to whom I now gave command, I had known since the days when I used to go swan shooting with Nea and me in the reeds. He was the only son of Maatas' brother, the overseer of the grain lands of the royal city. Within the hour, soldiers were filing down to the quay. Since the time of Zuma invasion led by Zadok, swift river boats on which 3,000 men could be embarked were kept fully provisioned with grain and wine, arrows, linen for wounds and other things for war. 6 trade barges were at the royal city, and these were added to our fleet for the transporting of the horses and chariots and the remainder of our army. I ordered that another barge should follow us with 200 jars of burning oil, so that the bodies of Zumas should be burned, for they were unworthy to have calm as shroud. I went to the room of seals and took my father's great war helmet from a chest where it had lain, wrapped in fine linen, since he had worn it into victory. Then I said goodbye to Chikia, my daughter. She clung to me. The noisy preparation for battle is frightening for a child. Her cheek was smooth against mine as I held her close. I thought that soon my body might be mine no longer, but in my child it would still live in calm, while my spirit journeyed on through time. I picked up a ceremonial flail and put it in her hands. See, Shikiita, Shikia, till I return you shall rule for me, and then you shall sit at the banquet, and no one shall send you early to bed. Mother, you are dressed as a warrior, and warriors are killed. Zeb will look after me. How can I be hurt when I have my soldiers around me? We shall drive the Zumas from our country, and they will scuttle like guilty puppies from the goose-tender's wife when she finds them nosing around the nests. Smile, my Chikia, and be worthy of the flail. Now I must go, but come with me and see the warriors start. Within 3 hours all my soldiers had embarked. Followed by Zeb, I galloped my chariot to join them at the quay. The news that Pharaoh would lead them into battle had reached their ears, and they greeted me with our battle cry, Atet and Light, as in one great voice. They proclaimed their rejoicing in my leadership. The rowers bent to their oars as the ships were unleashed from their moorings, and we swept upstream to the song that the steersmen sang to keep them to their rhythm. Pull on your oars, my rowers, pull on your oars, so that the boat cleaves through the water like an arrowhead of wild swans. Returning to the reeds at sunrise, blow strongly, mighty wind, blow strongly, so that my weary rowers may rest in the shade of the swelling sail. The goddess of the wind smiled upon us, and when the wind fell idle at evening, our rowers had rested, and we swept on upriver. I talked long with Zeb and Maates, and with Patakifa, who together with Zerta and 5 healer priests accompanied us. Our battle plan was shared among all. The boats were near enough for a strong swimmer to take messages from one to another. Diving from the stern of one boat, he would swim to the one behind, and to return a rope was thrown to him, and he was pulled back to the leading boat. When I was a child, I longed to be a warrior and follow Nea into battle. Now in my heart I prayed to Ptah that I might not fail my country. I could remember when I had fought with a sword and lived the life of a warrior in Atalanta, or Atlantis I guess it is, but that was long ago, and it is difficult to keep the warrior scarlet in a woman's body. What if I should be afraid and instill with my fear those to whom the courage of Pharaoh should be as a standard and a battle cry? It was dark of the moon, and the sky was singing, bright with stars, with the smooth water mirrored as though they had rained down from the heavens and had been unquenched. The sleeping villages were silent as we passed. Faintly across the still air I heard the shrill bark of a hunting jackal. The reeds rustled as an animal that had come down to drink fled from the sound of our oars. calm was tranquil as a sleeping child, who breathes quietly through a cobra slides towards it across the floor. Suddenly I knew that I should be fearless in battle. Even if a water rat has courage, when its young, nested under the banks, are threatened, the people of calm are my children, and the two lands are the shelter wherein I must house them in safety. Hound dogs can drive a lion out of the reeds, but a lioness with cubs is a match for 6 of them, and calm shall be tranquil in the shelter of our swords. We travelled for 2 days and 2 nights, and upon the 3rd day, an hour after high noon, we reached the amphitheatre of grain. Here are 2 great granaries, disused for nearly 100 years. Before the 2 lands were reunited, this place had been one of the chief grain lands of the Lotus, but now that the corn came from the land of the papyrus, it had returned to pasture, and no one lived here but a few herdsmen. It is here that our finest bulls and cows are put to roam, so that the best of our cattle multiply themselves, and the young bulls are sent throughout the country to beget strong calves. Our boat could not get close in to the bank, for there was no quay, so the horses had to walk along landing planks. Some of them squealed and reared until their charioteers calmed them and could lead them to the bank. Patakifa told me that the Zumas had not yet reached their encampment, and that, not daring to seem to doubt the commands and promises of Set, they had set forward no outposts. So instead of waiting for the cover of night, we marched across the amphitheatre of grain and encamped near to the foot of the cliffs. 5 hours before dawn, Maatis with his 1,200 mace-bearers left to take up his position in the battle plan. He was to climb a path up to the cliff to the south of the gorge and wait as near to the head of it as he could, without danger of being heard. Then, when the last of the Zumas had entered the gorge on their way down to the plain, he would block their retreat, so that when we drove them back towards him, they would run their heads against a wall of stone. Zeb, with his archers, went up the defile to hide with his men in the north riverbed, which joined it midway between the Zuma camp and the plain. He would let half their army pass and then assail them with a burning rain of arrows, until their column writhed like a snake whose back is broken by a stick. Before the warriors left, I spoke to them. We are outnumbered 4 to 1, so we must fight like warrior gods. This is a battle of light against darkness. And in each man you kill an evil one, and in their death the gods rejoice with you. Oh, it's so moving. At dawn I will lead you into victory, as the great Atet led your fathers. I don't know how this ends, guys.